Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the SaaS Sessions podcast. Today we have Bhaskar Roy on the show with us. Currently, he's the Chief of AI Products and Solutions at Workato, and previously he has held the CMO title at Workato as well. Again, for people who don't know Workato, I think it's like one platform for intelligent integration and building like workflow automation across your entire organization, right? So I would let Bhaskar talk more about Workato and obviously give a much more deeper introduction about himself. So hey Bhaskar, such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Sunil. This is really exciting. Yeah, let's dive in.
Awesome, great. So, like Bhaskar, again, as was mentioning, like I gave a very short intro about you. I just you spent like close to a decade at Workato, right? And been at the forefront of how apps talk to each other, how apps integrate with each other, and now at the evolution of like apps turning into agents, right? So, why don't you share like how's your journey been in the past 10 years and maybe share more about like what Workato is doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Sunil. So if you look at the past decade, it has been about all the various SaaS applications. And Workato was born, to make sure that all these applications that people are onboarding and doing things with can talk to each other. And talk to each other. You can orchestrate various workflows across the board through this and do this in a manner which is not just, developers doing it, but have a low code, no code approach to it so that it can be democratized, right? So, for example, if you look at various kind of processes which are there in various companies, right, there are functions who have the process experts, right? The finance ops teams will know the financial processes really well, but most of the time, what would happen in those cases is they would always have to go to some kind of a developer, some integration developer to build those kind of integrations. It created a bottleneck. And Workato was born to actually remove that bottleneck so that finance ops teams, people ops team, customer support ops team could build all of these automations while being still centrally governed and secured by IT. So that was the change in paradigm that we brought in, when Workato started. Now, as you hinted towards, it is going towards agents, right? And agents, if you look at it, again, changes that entire dynamic because now agents are powerful enough to be able to do a lot of things across various applications and do it in a way whereby there is reasoning, there is intelligence, there is inference capabilities in all of those agents, so they can even further democratize various things that can happen. And I think that's what Workato is doing right now. It enables you to build various purpose specific agents. It can collaborate with various other third party agents in order to fulfill whatever you're looking to do, come to that outcome that you're looking to achieve. And it provides that level as a platform to be able to do that. And on top of it, there are two other things that we have introduced recently, Sunil. One is one is what we call a super app, right? Where since you're connecting all your systems, all your agents to one particular place, the from a user standpoint, they can just go to one place in order to go get their work done. They don't have to now swivel chair between various applications or figure out which agent should I go to do what. All of those things get removed and the user just goes in order to get their work done. So that's one thing that we have introduced recently, Sunil. And the other part of it is what we are finding from a customer base, Sunil, is that often people don't know where to get started. Everyone wants to do agents, everyone is building agents, but there is almost like a starting point. So we have introduced what we call agent x applications. These are pre-built agents, pre-built AI oriented apps that people can get started and customize it to their specific needs.
Nice. I think as you said, right, like everybody is trying to like build agents, right? Like all the product folks that I'm conversing as well. Um, they say the same thing, right? Like everybody would just want to get started with some kind of agents that they want to offer to their end users inside the app, right? So I'm really excited about like to see how the industry would shape in the future. And like and what sort of product interactions we're able to see, right? Like what happens to GUI, right? Like I just was discussing with in the one of the previous episodes, right? Like what happens to the future of interface, right? Like that's also one of the top topics right now. But yeah, Bhaskar, I think you have been at the intersection of SaaS, in innovation in the past 2 decades, right? So in 2015, like, do you think are we at the tipping point for how businesses perceive and, like, use software, right? Both businesses and individuals, right? Like, and what do you feel like that's fundamentally different today?
Yeah, so I'll go back to something around how we perceive agents, right? A core
Hmm.
thing that agents bring in is the ability to take action across various systems and orchestrate workflows across them, right? So that is at the fundamental core as to what agents do. And yes, they do reasoning inference and then execute what they need to do. So on that particular front, Workato has been there. This is our founding principle. That the orchestration should be the core ways of doing things. And so when we look at agents, there are a few things that change. One is I'll touch on UI and then go down. One is the UI, people are voted thanks to ChatGPT when it came out a few years back. People are voting towards conversational interfaces, right? Rather than
Right.
going and figuring out which button to click, what to do, they are pretty much want everything where they can chat, and the agents
Hmm.
do that, behind the scenes. So it becomes a
Hmm.
very simple from a UI standpoint, where conversational UI becomes at the core as to how you do things. So that's one part. The other thing is, the once the user
Hmm.
provides saying that, hey, this is what I'm looking to do, being able to understand that intent and being able to go across various systems to execute that business logic. So there is no more, at least the way we see it is no more that, okay, if you are in a CRM, you're limited to doing this. If you're in XYZ, you're limited to do this. Now you are bringing the power to an user where they can type whatever they want, and then you can work across various systems to execute whatever the user is looking to do. If it is knowledge retrieval, they retrieve the knowledge. If it is to orchestrate a workflow, including complex workflows, they should be able to do that. So to me,
Hmm.
that fundamentally changes both the UI as well as how you think about technology and your tech stack completely.
Hmm. Interesting. And I think, like, an outcome of this, right, like, is like how SaaS started as a standardized solution, right, to individual problems, right, and then it got evolved to, like, the best of breed apps, right, for every business function, right. So I'm sure, like, over the years, and maybe few, like, the next few years to come as well, right, like the customer expectation and complexity, right, changes as businesses juggles with, like, hundreds of apps, right, if not thousands, right, like in an enterprise especially, right, and everyone has, like, different, like, data lakes, and they have siloed data, they don't necessarily talk to each other. Again, you would know well, right, you're in the integration business, right.
Mhm.
So how do you think, like, uh like, these different apps, like, come together, right, and then when an employee, like, what does it change for the employee, right, and business leaders when you get, like, that one interface for all the apps that can search, as you said, like, search, act, orchestrate, like, work across everything, like, a company uses?
Yeah, from an employee standpoint, I think the productivity shoots up. And the reason being that if you look at how much time someone spends, an employee spends, going through, like you were saying, trying to understand what are the various business KPIs which are there, which is predominantly running, say, queries against your data lakes, etc. Then how much time I spend swirling going from one app to the other app, getting things done. And the third part of it, which is also pretty important, that these agents have intelligence, they can reason, they can inference. So it's no longer that anything that comes in, I have to always go to some developer or IT to get things done. Most of the time the agents are able to figure those things out,
Hmm.
and execute on that particular front. I think it also
Hmm.
improves the proactive nature. of that, right?
Hmm.
So often when you are going to certain things, when you start your day, what are some of the things that I should work on? The agents behind the scenes can bring those to you, saying that, hey,
Correct.
these are the things that you need to do. And they can even take action and orchestrate that entire thing for you. So, from an
Hmm.
employee standpoint, if you look at it, I can just go to this one place. It is bringing me all the things that I need to execute on or do things. It's behind the scenes, it's also doing those things for you. Something which is very
Right.
hard to do from a SaaS, right? SaaS is very deterministic. It is
Hmm.
coded to do certain things. And then if you need to do additional things, you have to go back to the vendor and ask, or, you have to build various customizations for it to work. It takes months to be able to do that. Now, all of a sudden,
Right.
those things are shrunk to being able to do that pretty much in real time. And I think that's
Yep.
hugely productive for employees to be able to get their work done.
Totally. And I think, you either go to the vendor and say like, hey, we need this built, or you just buy another app and then like,
That's right.
solve for an integration, right? Like,
Yeah.
and something like that. And I think you mentioned, in one of your posts or one of your, maybe LinkedIn post or blog, I don't remember reading it, but I do remember that you mentioned like, intelligence, agent, right? Is like the next stage or next evolution in the phase that we are in right now, right? Like how early access tools were, I think, like limited to actionability, right? Because they couldn't access like all the data, or like they're not able to like actually do the work, right? But as you said, like as LLMs become like more intelligent, right? So does the agents become more intelligent, and now you don't need like there shouldn't be like a UI that needs to exist, or a functionality that needs to exist, right? Like agents can like be intelligent enough to figure out like what is required. Like you just define like what the outcome is. Like I think we were in the workflow era where we were trying to define like, hey, this is the workflow that I want, and then the softwares and the apps and the AI like used to follow the workflow and help us do it. But now I think we're in the era where we just decide like, hey, I need this outcome, and you decide like what the workflow is, right? I don't care like you take 10 steps, 5 steps, talk to like 5 different tools or whatever, right? Like I just need my like ads, return over ad spend, like ROAS, to increase by
Yeah.
5% or 10%. That's my outcome, right? You change the creative, you change the content, we don't care, right? Like just get it done. So like have you seen like practically, like maybe you can share some examples, right? Like how do you connect, how do deeply connected agents, right, across like let's say verticals, function, or whatever, like change like what's possible in enterprise automation, right? Maybe we can share some examples that you've seen at Workato, right? Like where do you see the greatest impact, right? Is it like content creation? Is it like process automation? Is it like cross app orchestration or multi-agent workflows? Like what are your learnings?
Yeah, so there are multiple aspects of this, right? So before I get into answering what we are seeing in Workato,
Hmm.
yeah, there was actually a report that was put out by Gartner called, I think it was Mind the Agency Gap or something around those lines. I don't
Hmm.
remember the exact name of the report. And what they and it was a very eye-opening. There was a very eye-opening diagram in which they said that
Hmm.
majority of the companies today, they are in the low agency section. What I mean by that is it was
Hmm.
predominantly around content creation, summarization, writing emails, all of the things that you're
Hmm.
talking about, right? So that's where most of the experimentation and others are happening. However, the place where you get the maximum value and ROI is when you in agents start doing what is absolutely at the core of your business, right? Things like processes like say order to cash, hire to retire, supply chain management, all of those things are not there yet where agents are doing core aspects of the business. Now, when agents are able to do that, that's where things just radically change. The value creation, the ROI just radically changes, right? And so, what we are looking at is how can you really build agents or have agents that run those
Hmm.
core things? And Workato has been doing that, right? The core automations, etc. That's what our customers use us for. Now, if you apply the agentic side of things, how does that change? How agents get
Hmm.
to the core of your business processes that we are looking at. And so if you think about it, there are a number of things that our customers and internally as well we look at and do. um, I'll give you a simple example, say quote to cash. Very complex process if you think about it, right? It starts from how do you quote your quote, build a quote across, say in SaaS. If you're buying something, there is so many options to choose from, so many things to create a quote for a sales rep. How can and a sales rep just go and say, hey, I need to create a quote for XYZ, and the agent behind the scenes looks at what your opportunity status is in your CRM, what are the call recordings that I have, what are the documentation that I have, figures out, creates that quote for you to get you started. And then once the customer signs the quote or the order form, which comes in, it helps execute that entire order to cash, which is cross functional, right? There is sales involved, finance involved, customer success from a provisioning standpoint. How can an agent orchestrate that entire thing end to end? Those things to me are the core aspects that we are starting to see in these processes. And yeah, means marketing side, like you were mentioning, how do we run? You're giving a goal saying that I want my ROAS to be XYZ, whatever it is that you're driving towards. And agents behind the scene are figuring out, saying that, okay, for me to be able to do this, there is ad copy changes, but it's just not that. How do I run SDR sequences differently, or ad testing on the SDR sequences that happens? Monitor what the result is, continuously make those adjustments, and in some cases with human supervision as is needed, but it's able to constantly make those changes and proactively go about doing things in order to hit the ROAS that you're looking for. So we are starting to see that. So now, and especially in these core processes that we see our customers implement. The key thing, other places where we see this apply also, we see quite a bit in IT help desks, ITSM situation, where the CIO or whoever is in charge of IT operations, they look at how can I improve my ticket deflection rate. So being able to look at saying that, okay, if your ticket deflection rate is this, I need to get to this particular part. Agents being able to figure that out and being able to even create content on that side to be able to do that. And similar thing also happens in customer support, right? How can I provide personalized customer support based on what that customer has bought and what issues they're running into? So yeah, all of those cases I think are ripe for us to be able to look at this. And we are seeing customers deploy those kind of agents in Workato.
Nice, nice. Like that's a very, good perspective to, look at things. But slightly, uh, different view, or maybe, something to really think about is like where does the automation stop, right? Or where does the intelligence layer stop, right? Because let's say, I think the agents that we are building today and maybe in the next few years would be, still be like a reactive agent where it would need a trigger like from a human or something. Maybe it's like triggering through another workflow which is triggered through another workflow, but in the end that workflow is triggered by a human, right? So essentially it's like a human triggering it, right? So it's still more of a reactive approach, whereas whereas these agents become intelligent enough that they become proactive, right? You don't need to, as you said, like the code to cash example, right? Like I have to, as a sales rep, like have to trigger that workflow. But what if you just got the email? It has access to your emails anyway, and they said like, hey, we want to go ahead, and it just like gives you like a either maybe it gives you like a pop up, hey, want to start this automation, like where you send them the invoice and start the entire process. Yes, and you just click that button or say yes or whatever, and it starts, right? It's still like a reactive one, but then like can you give access to your systems, like enough access where the intelligent agent has access to everything, and it becomes so proactive that as soon as the you get the email, it automatically it knows like you have to start this process, and it starts, right? So I know it's a scary thing as well, to be honest, but like also shows us like how much important is human in the loop automation. I'm sure like a lot of companies are thinking of this as well. So what are your thoughts on these kind of proactive versus reactive agents, right? And what is the limit, right? And then why do you think like human in the loop is like so much important?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think agents, we will get there where agents are becoming more proactive to understand the needs which are there for the business, and then
Hmm.
doing the entire orchestration as a part of it and involving humans as needed. Now, we are taking a couple of steps towards that, Sunil. One means there are two things that I'll talk about. One is, we call this, lack of a better term, we call these app events. So we now
Hmm.
have agents that you can build which are listening to events happening in various applications. Say, for example, a person gets marked hired in Workday, or a lead comes in Salesforce, or a ticket is there in whatever ticketing system, say Jira Service Management. So now on Workato, you can build these agents which are listening to various events. And once that event happens, it reasons, adds context based on all the various knowledge sources that it has, basically all the systems that you have connected, and starts doing things in an autonomous manner. And then if it realizes that it needs a human there are two things. One is human approval or a human confirmation. It brings those into that context of that as it's executing things, and in order to execute that stuff. Now, when you think from that standpoint, it's the first step to being proactive. But a key part of this is, that we strongly believe that agents should work on behalf of the user. What I mean by that is agents should not just be able to go and update things on their own. One is a user confirmation, but also it should respect users' permission. What I mean by that is, say for example, if I have access to certain accounts and opportunities in Salesforce, I should be able to update only that and not other reps, accounts and
Hmm.
opportunities. So you have to respect the user's permission, and there is a technology that we have over here called agent authentication, where the users are prompted to authenticate against the source application, and then based it uses that OAuth token to execute. So it has to respect the user's permission as it's taking action. So that's one part of it, which is driven by what we
Hmm.
call app events and the agent orchestrating things once that event happens. The second thing that we are looking at is what we call enterprise acumen. What I mean by that is you point agents, you have connected various things, and you say that, hey, monitor all of these KPIs which are there in the business, and as they fluctuate, let me know what's the best thing to do. So agents
Hmm.
behind the scenes are proactively monitoring those KPIs, and as they fluctuate, as they do things, it is doing the reasoning, it's figuring out what should be done, brings that information back to whoever are the stakeholders therein, and not just a reasoning that, hey, this has happened, but start providing recommendations as to how that can be done. Things like you were
Hmm.
talking about, right? There is a recommendation, hey, I saw this thing happen, here is a button, click a button or start interacting with it in order to change that behavior. So we are starting to
Hmm.
see those things. But in order to become completely proactive and autonomous, I think we will get there and it won't be that far off either.
Yeah, I think, and after this, right, like the obvious thing to talk about, like, is solving for how do you solve for trust, transparency, and control, right? Like, I know you hinted about some of these things, right? But I'm sure, like, you must be getting these questions from your prospective customers and maybe your existing customers as well, like about the risk of risk and responsibilities when AI is making these decisions, right? Like triggering actions, accessing like sensitive business data, has access to your maybe database as well, data layer as well. So it pretty much knows like a lot of information, right? So, um, so like what are the best practices that you have seen, right? Maybe at Workato, maybe at like different companies, or maybe in general in the industry, that people implement for governance, control, building user trust, and balancing like automation with oversight, right? Like obviously human in the loop is there, like that's like one way, but what are the other best practices that you have seen?
Yeah, so there are a few things, Sunil, that we have seen basically through our customers. So I'll break it down into a couple ways. One is on the governance side, who has
Hmm.
access to those agents, right? Because some of the agents, say if it's a finance agent, you don't want just the regular employees to be able to interact with that agent. So who has access to what agent? The second part of it is we also
Hmm.
believe that the agents have to be very purpose specific. So there is an
Hmm.
agent who is just involved in doing xyz, right, and not beyond that. So you're giving that agent the set of capabilities that it can or cannot do, and this is what we call enterprise skills. So you
Hmm.
add necessary skills that the agent should have based on what that purpose is, right? So that's
Hmm.
another part that enables for agents to, because you'll be connecting so many things, you're just making sure that the agent is narrow focused in order to get things done. Now, if
Hmm.
that particular agent needs to collaborate with other agents, there is a governance aspect of that as well that comes in between agent to agent collaboration. But enterprise
Hmm.
skills also helps focus down as to what it can do. The third area is what I talked about. When agents go to execute actions and do certain workflows which are there, you
Hmm.
need that ability, that permissioning capability to be very strong, where it is only executing on behalf of the user that it got to
Hmm.
do, rather than it having full admin access across the board and it can do whatever it needs to do. So that's the
Hmm.
other part that comes in, which is the permissioning model. And the final thing that you talked about, Sunil, is human in the loop. I think
Right.
ideally you get to a world where these are all autonomous agents, but we are not there yet, right? So the
Right.
human in the loop, in order to confirm certain things or work through approvals for certain things, are required for these
Hmm.
agents to learn and grow from there.
Right. As I said, right, like all the, like even in security and even in, building trust, transparency, like I'm sure like I just like there would be like agents that would solve for this as well, right? You just say like, hey, like, make sure like all my agents are compliant, and like another, there's a compliance agent that runs like,
Mhm.
horizontally across like all agents, right? And I'm sure that those layers would come, right? Eventually, and maybe
It's actually
some company.
something that we are seeing now. Means there are
Hmm.
different terminologies, but supervisor agents are already
Right.
in place,
Hmm.
right? Where agents are supervising various agent actions or what various agents are doing.
Right.
Compliance is an element of that, but
Hmm.
supervisor agent also helps you coordinate across various agents, right? So those kind of notions are things that we are already seeing, companies adopt.
Yeah, again, yeah, that's what, right? Like even I've seen like all the lot of evals products are
Mhm.
also getting funded, and getting some good business. They're like growing fast as compared to like all the like general agent builders and like agent themselves, like some vertical agent, horizontal agent companies, right? So I'm sure like solving for trust, transparency, and control in a intelligent agent world would be like like much more important, rather, as compared to like solving for these same things in a SaaS product or a SaaS category, right? Like because here you have like a separate like LLM or an intelligent entity that's acting on your behalf, have access to everything. You don't is proactive, right? Like all the like check boxes to make you like a human, right?
Mhm.
You never know, in maybe few years like captcha would be like a history, right? Like you don't need to do captcha as well, like it would just do it for you, right? uh Interesting. But great conversation, Bhaskar, and like moving on to the lightning round. But just before that, like take zooming out on the conversation, maybe you can just share like what should, in your experience and in your opinion, like what should business and tech leaders do today to be ready for this transition of apps to agents?
Yeah, I think there are two aspects of this. that I can think of, Sunil. One is definitely a mindset thing. So as things are getting, means this thing is moving so fast, as we all know,
Mm,
right? Having that mindset as to how they can leverage agents in order to really do their core business processes, I think it's a mindset shift, and it comes with confidence. Also, when I say mindset shift, it is you are thinking first, not an app-centric way like you are used to SaaS. You're thinking more like, what agent can I build that can help me do all of this in a much better way, right? So that kind of
mm,
mindset shift needs to happen in enterprises where they start looking at figuring out how they get agents to the core of their business process, right? So that's one
mm,
mindset shift. The second is, I would say, it's a technology stack implication as well, or a shift, right?
mm,
Because there is just so much noise around this. But as you were touching upon the trust, the governance side of things, how reliable they are, because when you start taking agents to the core, reliability matters a lot. Deterministic ways of doing things still matter a lot, right? So those things become core. So when you look at from a tech stack standpoint, you need to look at as to what is the platform that we can adopt which can help us
mm,
through all of this, right? So it is also, to me, it's not just a choice of how do I build agents, but thinking through the entire tech stack, saying how can I not just build but reliably, with full trust, deploy agents, because now they are core to my business function. So I think
mm.
those two shifts need to happen in any company for them to realize the full value of agents.
Hmm. Nice. I think that's gold for anybody who's building in the AI space, right? Like whether you're building like vertical apps, vertical agents, horizontal agents, platforms, foundational model like infrastructure. I think that kind of advice like cuts across, right? And you have to think fundamentally when you talk about mindset change, right? Like it doesn't matter what you're building, like you have to change the way you think, change the way you perceive things, and change the way like how you're approaching the world, right? And like how the market would react, like how the like people would buy your product and everything, right? So
Yes.
I'm sure like a lot of gold there. So thanks a lot for that. So moving on to the like the section lightning round section of the
Yeah.
episode, right? So I know I've been asking you too many questions, but I know you're thinking on the fly, but just three questions, three more.
Yeah.
So let's get started with the first one. So, Bhaskar, like, what's the one thing that has helped you shorten your learning curve?
Oh, it is. It is mainly getting hands on. I don't know how to
Hmm.
say it because there's so much you can read up on things. There are
Hmm.
so many things that are happening across the board, um, and there is a lot of noise. But unless and
Yeah.
until you really get hands on, you don't really learn. You don't really grasp it fully, right? Or being able to grasp it at a fundamental and
Hmm.
core level till you start
Right.
building things. So to me, that has been helpful. Trying various
To-
things, building stuff, and then seeing, okay, is this really hype or is this real?
Totally. I think and in the post, like let's say post AI world, right? Like it's even more true because like instead of reading like 10 articles and 5 newsletters and like four podcast or YouTube channels or whatever, like now AI can just summarize that thing for you in like five lines and 10 lines or whatever. But until and you'll get that, but until and unless you go and implement, you're not going to like learn anything, right? Like
Yeah.
it'll summarize for you, give you like all the content in like a some like shortest form possible, but you have to go and implement it, right? Like get your hands dirty, get in the mud, do your thing. Only then I think you'll see results, right? It's even more true these days is what
Oh,
I've seen,
totally
right?
agree. So we have this in Workato, we call it Workato and Workato, where people are across the company, and it is not just specific teams, across the companies, we are encouraging people to build agents for
Oh,
their own
nice.
their, the stuff that they do on a regular basis. And that
Hmm.
is eye opening, right? Eye opening not just for us, but people who are building things. They start realizing, oh my gosh, I can do XYZ so much more easily or so much
Hmm.
better using the intelligence of agents, using the creativity of agents, while being, very deterministic in terms of the workflows that they need to execute. So it has been a
Hmm.
really good thing within Workato, with this Workato and Workato initiative.
Nice. That sounds interesting. I don't know if you are, it's still. I know it's internal, but I don't know if you are publishing it to the world. I'm sure like that would be like a very valuable resource to like everybody who's trying to, build agents internally like for different functions, right? Marketing, sales, like GTM to begin with, but also like even HR and some other like low ops and or sorry, very heavy ops function, right? Interesting.
Yeah,
So.
we are planning to release all of those agents as we are building this, and including how you can implement and things like that. All of those things we are working towards. We have a user
Nice.
conference coming up, Sunil, mid August, August 18 to 28, where
Oh
we'll
wow.
essentially talk about, or showcase all of these agents that we are building to our users and enable them to be able to
Nice.
use it themselves.
Nice. That's sounds interesting. So second question, right? Like lightning round. So Bhaskar, like what do you know about your work now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Hmm. How I wish this AI and agentic capability was there way back when. So I started as a software developer, right? And I was in
Hmm.
TCS, going to various customer sites, building things, implementing things. But if there was this kind of intelligence which was there, which provided me with a full blueprint as to how to do it, and also
Hmm.
being able to build these agents to do it, oh my gosh, the number of projects that we would have done, which were like 3 month, 6 month project, and then you're done with it, would be done in days or weeks, right? So
Right.
to me, how I wish this particular phenomena that we are seeing was
Hmm.
available back then. Things would have been a lot better, and I think all the various companies would have also so much benefited from that.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like a lot of people would love to see like how, like even 5 or 10 years ahead in the future would look like how the world would look like 10 years ahead in the future. Like that's something to really think about, right? Very interesting. And last one, right? Like third question. So because obviously like everybody's using some or the other AI tools, right? Like what's your favorite AI tool that you cannot live without these days?
Uh, it will sound I'm promoting things, but it is is one of the things that I'm playing around with quite a bit. And I also play around with a, a number of co-pilots that are being released by
Hmm.
various IoT applications. And then on the developer side of things, not that I'm a developer, but just for playing around things, just for playing around. Lately, I've been
Hmm.
using Cloud Code in order to
Oh, nice.
understand what are the various things that can be done through it, or even how Workato can be plugged in to Cloud Code to execute stuff, right? So we have the
Hmm.
capability, we have MCP capabilities now, and you can
Hmm.
plug that to Cloud Code to do things, or any of these applications to do things. So have been playing around with those kind of products.
Nice, nice. That's interesting. I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people listening, maybe they'd love to check out like what Workato is building and probably reach out and see how you guys can help them, right? So great chat, Bhaskar, and thanks a lot for taking time. I know this has been like I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time now, and it was definitely worth the wait. And I'm sure, like me, a lot of other listeners, like anybody who will listen to this show, would get a lot of insights on how you are thinking, Workato as a leader is thinking on AI and agents, and the shift from apps to agents, and what the future and would look like, and everything, right? So thanks a lot for taking time today and sharing all these insights with us.
Thank you, Sunil.